Hey guys, it's Reilly with another all English episode, and this time also a solo episode. I don't have any guests with me. I'm kind of a ball of nerves right now. I'm heading to Kobe in a couple of days. It's Thursday as I'm recording. To go watch Wales versus Japan play rugby. I've talked about this in previous episodes, but I'm a big fan of the Welsh rugby team. I mean, obviously I also support the Japanese team, but when Wales is playing, I support Wales. Maybe against almost anybody else except the USA, I would support Japan, but for this game, I'm a diehard Wales fan. And Wales have lost 18 games in a row as of last week. They lost actually to Japan in the first game of a 2-game series in Kitakyushu, but this one in Kobe, it really matters. I mean, it's Japan. It's Wales's kind of last chance to win a game for a while, I think, and so I'm really nervous. Obviously, I want Wales to win, but I think even if Wales lose, I think I'll have a good time. I'm going with my friend Josh, and some other friends to go to Kobe, and we'll stay the night and we'll go out. Hopefully. Ideally, we can go out with some other Welsh fans who are excited because Wales has won a game after, I don't know, over a year, almost 2 years without a win. That would be really cool. But either way, we're going to go out and have a good time. I think we're going to try to go to some kind of English or British pub somewhere in Kobe to try to watch the other game that's on that evening. The British and Irish Lions are playing against an Australian and New Zealand team in this big tour they're doing in Australia. So that'll be fun to watch at a pub, hopefully with some other Welsh people who are, again, hopefully happy after winning a game. Or maybe it'll be with some Japanese people who are happy after winning the game. I don't know. So that's kind of my plans for the weekend, but it's not what I'm going to be talking about for most of this episode. I'll be talking about a different Kansai event, the Osaka Expo. But before that, I should say the Instagrams. Mine is Reilly Sullivan XD, and Sota is Eigo no Sota. With that done, let's get into the main topic. Okay, the expo is going on now, and I know quite a few people, some of my students, elementary school students and stuff, who have gone. None of my close friends have gone yet, so I don't have that much first-hand or even second-hand knowledge. I haven't gone myself yet, but I have actually two of my coworkers are going to go on kind of a field trip, I guess you would call it, with the students in a couple of weeks. I'll get to hear more about it then. But for now, this is all going to be based on stuff that I've read about and heard from people that I know. First, when I first heard about the expo happening, I don't know, it was probably a couple years ago. I saw the Myaku Myaku character, which, by the way, Myaku Myaku is a little bit hard for me to say. I think for English speakers to say. I don't think we have very many words in English that are my like that, mya or myo or something like that. We don't really have that many words like that, so it's a little hard to say. But anyway, Myaku Myaku, the kind of mascot character, I personally like. I know it's kind of it. I don't know what the pronouns are. Is it a he or she? I'll say it because it seems kind of like a monster or alien or something, but it is controversial. Some people really like it. Some people really don't like it. I personally think it's cool looking. Or cute is maybe going a little bit too far, but it looks cool. It's interesting. I like it. And it looks futuristic, which I guess is part of the theme of the whole thing. I've never been to any other expo, international expo, or World's Fair, I think it's sometimes called. The closest thing, I guess, that I've been to is Epcot in Disney World in Florida, where they have kind of different areas that are themed around different countries. Yeah, but I went there when I was much younger. I don't remember it super well, but I remember liking it. I think even as a kid, I was kind of into like social studies, as we called it in school, like geography and history and stuff like that. So it was interesting for me. But I think Epcot in the Disney parks is more of kind of an adult park. Like, I know one thing that people sometimes do is they try to have a beer at every country in Epcot. I think that's a lot of beer. I've never done it. I don't know the details. But anyway, yeah. So that's kind of my closest comparison is Epcot. And then as far as like expos go, maybe the one I know the most about, like historically, was the one in Chicago. It was called like the Columbia Exhibition, I think it was called. And it was in 1893. And it was like Chicago built this huge, like temporary, city, kind of like the expo now, but it was like all white. So they called it the White City. And yeah, that one was kind of famous for having electricity. Like at that expo, they had at least some of the pavilions, I guess they're called now. I think they were just called buildings at the time, were, run by electricity, which for 1893 was very new and interesting and futuristic. So I think that's something that I'm kind of thinking about when I compare the current expo to other expos. Is like, at this expo in the past, they showed electricity. That's kind of crazy how futuristic that must have seemed to those people. Maybe some people were coming from like farms in rural America and like had never seen a light bulb before, and now all of a sudden there's a huge building that's run on electricity with light bulbs and machines and everything. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of imagining that. Then the other one that I know a little bit about is the Osaka 1970 expo, which probably a lot of people are comparing this to, which had some kind of, I guess, futuristic things for the time, like they had a rock from the moon because people had recently landed on the moon, and then there was conveyor belt sushi at that one. Kind of funny that now too one of the big attractions of the 2025 expo is a big kurazushi. They had early mobile phones, like cell phones, I guess, and LAN, which is kind of like an early version of the internet where you can connect multiple computers together. Like you need to do it with cables or something, but still it kind of creates a little mini internet. So yeah, I mean, those were the kind of like technologies that were shown at previous expos, and comparing that to this expo, my original thoughts were like a little bit down on the current expo. Like I kind of thought all these old ones had such cool, new-seeming technologies, and this one, maybe not so much. The theme is like designing future society for our lives, they call it. Which, I mean, it's not exactly the most optimistic, I guess. Like, for our lives sounds almost scary. Like, oh, what? Are our lives in danger? And I think kind of there is that undertone to the whole 2025 expo. Is like maybe our lives are in danger, because of climate change and other threats to like kind of the global, I don't know, people around the globe. That maybe things are kind of on the edge of like a dangerous situation. I think climate change is like one of the big themes of this expo, where I know Canada's pavilion is all about kind of like ice and stuff, and how, if we are not careful, if we don't kind of change the way that we are living, a lot of this ice might melt, and stuff like that. I think that, when you're looking at the expo as something, when you're thinking about it from a marketing standpoint, I should say, like, that's a little bit scary. I mean, I might not want to go to something talking about the future if the future is all about how it might be very bad, right? If all the ice melts, and that could mean, the sea level rises, and then a lot of people lose their homes because they live near the coast or whatever, that's all kind of scary stuff. But then I looked into the expo a little bit more, looked into like, some of the pavilions that are going on there, and I changed my mind a little bit. Like I saw this grand ring, which is not really a pavilion, I guess. It's kind of the whole arena, I guess. And I think that's pretty cool. It's, I'm kind of a sucker for things made out of wood. I like wooden architecture, I guess. So it looks really cool to me. And I think it will be like a cool symbol of Osaka if it stays there after the expo. I'm not sure it will, but just like from the 1970 expo, there's the what's it called? The Sun Tower, Tower of the Sun, something like that. And that's kind of still like a symbol of Osaka after 50 years. And if the Osaka Grand Ring continues in the same way, then it could also be a symbol for Osaka. I think the ring is a little bit more kind of understated. It's not as flashy as the Tower of the Sun, but I think it's still pretty cool. I mean, I like it, but maybe people wouldn't, have it as like a design on their bag or something. You might see the Tower of the Sun. I hope that's what it's called because I've said it several times. You might see that as like a design on a bag or a pencil case or something that a kid has, maybe. But I don't know if the Grand Ring would be like that. But maybe it'll be a symbol in a kind of different way. Now, yeah, so I looked up different pavilions and I looked up actually reviews of the expo. When I was thinking about going back when my company was talking about having this field trip. And a lot of them were somewhat negative, to be honest. Like a lot of them were talking about how the expo wasn't run super well, like this app that they have to allow you to make reservations at pavilions and see a map of the area and stuff. It didn't work very well. It was kind of difficult to use, and that it even like froze sometimes and just stopped working completely. Said also that the weather is a problem. It's really hot in Osaka in the summer, and there aren't that many places with shade or that many places to like sit down and relax and cool off. So that's kind of scary. I mean, especially if you're talking about an event that is, discussing climate change and stuff like that. And one of the main problems with the event is that it's really hot, is kind of a scary omen for the future where like, it's going to be hotter than this in the future. And what are people going to do about it? But anyway, I think also some people said that the English was not the best by some of the staff, and that some of the staff who worked at like, let's say the whatever country's pavilion, I don't know, for example, Thailand or something, might not have been from Thailand. They might have been just Japanese workers or volunteers, and that they couldn't answer that many questions about the country. I think that could be a problem, if you're a foreign tourist coming and wanting to learn more about some of the countries that have pavilions. But I also think it's quite understandable that not every country can send a bunch of staff to work at these pavilions, and people in Japan are going to have to work at them, and they can't be expected to know everything about these places, or even, I mean, hopefully they would have some level of English, but again, it's Japan, so you can't expect perfect English by everyone you meet, obviously. So I think that's kind of a little bit nitpicking, being a little bit too critical of the situation, of the event, I should say. But yeah, let me get into a little bit of the pavilions that I did hear about that sounded cool. Some people mentioned that the Japan pavilion, which seems like it focuses on kind of like renewable energy. They talked about like using algae as a source of energy, algae being, the kind of green plant that like floats on water and stuff. And also using other kinds of like trash or waste as energy so that we could reuse things that we've already used in a way. And that sounds kind of cool, like kind of optimistic ways of seeing the future. Good uses of we'll have more energy because technology will let us use algae or whatever. Yeah, that's kind of a good way of looking at these sustainability problems. And then the other one was the Osaka Healthcare Expo or Healthcare Pavilion, where they let you look at like a future you. I think it's 20 or 25 years in the future. They make like an AI image of what you'll look like in the future. And they also, I think, give you recommendations for how to stay healthy. They do some like measurements of your body and stuff like that. That sounds pretty cool, but maybe scary for some different reasons. I don't know if I want to see what I'll look like in 25 years, but maybe for kids that's fun. Maybe some adults are brave enough to try it and see what they'll look like in 25 years. Then there's the Future of Life. This is another kind of like special Japan run exhibit where they talk about like life in 2075, so 50 years from now, where people will be like living alongside robots with AI. And I think that's got to be one of the other main themes of this expo, along with the climate change, is probably AI. I imagine a lot of these pavilions are talking about that, and how people are going to live with AI in the future. But I think this pavilion is talking about it, the most in depth, and they even have like robots and stuff that I think you can talk to. And then they have this kind of, I think they call it like a millennium human or something like that, where there's a person 1,000 years from now and what people will be like then. And I think the idea there is that like people will kind of have become robots almost, or like robots and people will have merged together to become the same thing. And yeah, to me that's also maybe a little bit scary, but I think it's done in like an optimistic way, that this is kind of like an improvement or a new way of being human that'll let us be better in some way. Obviously I haven't been, so I don't know in detail, but it seems interesting, at least, if a little bit scary. Then what else? The Earth Mart is kind of like a supermarket in the future, and I think leads people to like think differently about how they eat food and how they buy food and where their food comes from and stuff like that. That I think might be the pavilion that I find the most interesting, or that I would want to go to the most. And some of the country pavilions, I won't go into too much detail about all of them, but yeah, I've heard that Hungary was like really beautiful. I think there was like a singer or something that was really touching to people who went. France has like a very, what can I say, like luxurious booth. I think there's a lot of stuff from like Louis Vuitton and Dior and stuff like that in there, that was, striking for people. Germany, I heard, was like naturally beautiful, had like a beautiful garden and stuff. And then the Saudi Arabia pavilion, I also heard, was very kind of beautifully designed. And I think, one of the other things I haven't mentioned is obviously all these pavilions have like very interesting architecture. And so if that's something that you are interested in, I know it's something that I'm a little bit interested in, that might be a reason to go by itself. Just go and look at these cool, futuristic or traditional or whatever, just interesting buildings that people have made for the expo. And so I would say, like, as a whole, my kind of verdict is that, like, my mind has changed a little bit. Like, I think that, the future that this Osaka 2025 Expo is talking about is not the, like, super optimistic future that maybe the 1893 Expo in Chicago was talking about, or even the 1970 Expo in Osaka was talking about. But rather, this Expo has, like, a kind of more mature, maybe a more realistic and kind of educational view of what the future might be like. And I think that's kind of nice. I think it might be nice to go and see this kind of more realistic and mature view of the future. So I think I do, in the end, want to go and see it eventually. I will say I'd rather not go in July or August, because it'll just be too hot. So maybe I'll wait till like late September, early October, toward the end of the event, I should say. And then I'll go. Maybe it'll be less crowded at that time too. I don't know. That would be nice. But yeah, those are kind of my thoughts on the expo. Obviously, I haven't been. So if I got anything wrong, I'm sorry about that. And if anybody has been and wants to say like, oh, this pavilion that you didn't mention was actually really good, or you got this wrong, feel free to tell me. I'd love to hear from you. Yeah, that's all. Thanks for listening. Bye bye.